that we would collect the information and collect the data going forward, but the compliance well would be the representative well next to that well. I'll just also mention the Tuolumne River is especially bare with respect to representative monitoring wells. We do anticipate getting additional wells to fill some of those data gaps. There are new wells that have already been budgeted for this fiscal year. And we've been working with Karen Morgan, who has found us an inactive irrigation well that seems reasonable to incorporate into the process. It's right on the river, so it's very well suited for a monitoring well along the Tuolumne River. So shout out to the City of Ceres and Karen's work on that. We appreciate being able to add an additional Tuolumne well at this time. Again, we are working with our neighbors across the river, each one of these rivers, to best represent wells so that we can collectively monitor the river system and the groundwater interaction. And then finally, moving to, oops.
Hey Phyllis, this is Mike with Waterford. With the Modesto Subbasin, they installed monitoring wells in Waterford. Would those be available for the Turlock Subbasin to use as well?
Absolutely. And my anticipation is that all of the adjacent subbasins would be happy to share their data across the river so that we get a better understanding of what's happening on both sides of the river. Great question. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that the recording thing had been up.
You gotta do your thing.
Okay, so moving on then to the last sustainability indicator, degraded water quality. It's just a little bit of a different animal. So there isn't a 50% criteria here. There is a sort of building on what has already been characterized in the subbasin and looking at new first-time exceedances of an MT for a constituent of concern that has been caused by GSA management. And I added the words on this slide only, caused by GSA management as listed above. That means that I'm referring the reader to the narrative portion of the undesirable results, where the GSAs recognize that they are responsible for GSA projects and management actions or management of water levels and groundwater extractions. Those things that that GSAs are actually managing within the subbasin. And then just some additional information about tracking and analyzing those constituents of concern over time. And then moving on to additional constituents of concern for the degraded water quality indicator. We had 4 previously. Those are these 4 that are down here: nitrate, nitrate, total dissolved solids, arsenic, and uranium. And there are 2 that I'm recommending to add to that list for a couple of different reasons. Tetrachloroethylene, PCE, has been determined to have a pretty well-defined plume within the city of Turlock and had impacted several city wells previously. The city of Turlock, since that time, has been working with the Regional Water Quality Control Board to control that plume and has been looking at ways of managing and containing that with wellhead treatment. So because migration of contaminant plumes is specifically in the requirements for the GSP, we thought it would make sense to incorporate the PCE plumes that have been defined into this, this indicator, including PCE detections that we have seen near Keys, near Houston, and also near Ceres, just as a tracking mechanism for the migration of contaminant plumes. And then 1,2,3-TCP, trichloropropane, is a relatively new MCL that was only effective as of 2018, and as a result really has sparse data. But because of its widespread impacts in other subbasins, and because the city of Ceres and others have spent quite a bit of money and time on installation of wellhead treatment for TCP, it seems reasonable to track that going forward as a potential impact in the subbasin. So that would make the total of constituents of concern 6. The monitoring program would be those wells that we are able to access readily off of the GeoTracker website from the State Water Resources Control Board, includes all of the public water supplier monitoring programs, GAMA, and other programs as well. If the regulated constituents that are being handled by the regulatory coalitions for the irrigated lands program and for CV salts, for example, if those data are on GeoTracker, then we'll access those directly from GeoTracker. But because we can also access those from their own website, we can monitor the process and the control of water quality for those constituents that are being done by others. And then only one more last adjustment made to the Chapter 6 Sustainable Management Criteria. We are adding a little bit of a different twist to this. We have already established fall 2015 groundwater elevations to be the minimum threshold for chronic lowering of water levels. And so we're already tracking that. Because we had a well that had a water level that had apparently gone very close to or possibly below the top of the Corcoran clay, then it seemed reasonable to also keep water levels above that level as well. The Western Lower Principal Aquifer is more susceptible to the potential for land subsidence based on what we've seen in other parts of the San Joaquin Valley. So, so the way that the minimum threshold now reads, it's the fall 2015 groundwater elevation or the elevation of the top of the Corcoran clay, whichever shallower. You can see on my little example, little cartoon example there for representative monitoring well 1, the shallower of those two is the 2015 water level, so that would be the MT. And on the representative monitoring well number 2, that water level, even though that's the historic low, that has fallen below the top of the Corcoran clay. And as such, the top of the Corcoran clay would be used for the MT. Any questions at all on Chapter 6 and any of the information that you've seen here? Okay, moving on then to the draft sustainability goal.
Let me interrupt for just 1 second, Phyllis. We do have a quorum now, and this next item does require action. Go ahead.
Okay, great.
Phyllis, this is Kevin. Before you go on, you didn't talk about the management objectives too extensively there. One of the comments we were working on was about the management objective for the water quality, and with one incidence of exceeding the previous levels of a constituent in the water quality testing, we've exceeded the MT. So how do we have a operating or management objective at the same time?
Because it would not be an exceedance if we determined that that exceedance was not caused by the GSA. So because that qualifier is there, the way that we had talked about setting this up is that we would pull the data on an annual basis. We would see if we had an exceedance, and then there would need to be a technical evaluation of that exceedance to see if that had been caused by management by the GSAs and if it had resulted in operational costs. And if it was not caused by the GSA management directly, then it would not be an undesirable result.
Gotcha, and that's why you added that language.
Yes, thank you for noticing that, yes.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the revised draft sustainability goal, I did just include one additional slide to get everybody back on the same page because we really haven't talked about this since last February. Again, we're looking for a mission statement to guide your GSP implementation mostly. And the regulations require that the GSAs establish a sustainability goal for the basin. One goal for the basin, a succinct goal, as much as possible here. And I thought it might be helpful. I just pulled on that last bullet there some usage from Sigma and the GSP language to help you know how they're thinking about and talking about a sustainability goal. So some of those example usages include things like whether the basin is meeting its sustainability goal, or if it seems likely that the basin will achieve its sustainability goal, or how a certain action might assist in achieving the sustainability goal. So I think that's the language, the type of usage that DWR anticipates with respect to sort of grading the papers, is whether or not the GSP is likely to meet its sustainability goal. With that in mind, here's the current version. It's pretty generic, and I think there were some comments from the ad hoc committee that it was so generic as not to really be appropriate, and the ad hoc committee thought it would be more appropriate to make it a little more real. So I tried to change this version into this revised draft version. It provides a little more specificity as to exactly what your plan does. The sustainability goal is to ensure a reliable and sustainable groundwater supply, supports growth and opportunity, sustains the agricultural economy, and provides for beneficial uses, especially during drought. And then each of the bullets are management actions that you are anticipating either through your sustainable management criteria or through additional management actions with respect to operating the Turlock subbasin. Be glad to answer any questions on that and any comments anybody might have. And if nobody has any questions or comments, then the ad hoc committee has reviewed it already. And so we would like for the TAC to either discuss it, provide feedback, and or approve it to put into your draft GSP.
Sorry, I must have missed the ad hoc committee meeting where this was talked about. Phyllis, this is Kevin again.
Yeah.
Supports the growth and opportunity is kind of a innocuous statement. Is there any basis for that? What that's supposed to mean?
Yes, to some extent. The opportunity is a little bit more generic, but the growth part is that the plan that's in place supports the increasing population growth that's being anticipated in the urban water management plans. So it is a planning document that does support that level of growth. Opportunity is more along the lines of if you have a sustainable water supply, I just think in general, you have more opportunities for supporting that growth. But this is your goal, not mine. And if you'd like to have a revision to that, we can do it.
I just think we're going to be criticized for it. I have no problem with it in there, but I just don't think it means anything. But that's just my thought. If the ad hoc committee likes it, I'll support it for sure.
Do others have comments on that? This would be a good time to discuss it.
And we're looking for a motion to adopt to put this into the plan.
Yes. And so I don't know if others don't have a comment on Kevin's comment. I don't want to just let it drop. So Kevin, if you'd like to make that comment in the comments on chapter 6, that might be a good way to do it. We could approve it today, perhaps, and move it forward into the next draft of the sustainable management criteria. But if the TAC members would like to revisit this, it's more than fine with me.
Is there anybody who would like to make a motion to approve?
So this is Debbie, and I hear what Kevin is saying, I would move to perhaps move it forward and include it in the current draft, but consider that, and maybe there's something else that we could include that would maybe not garner the criticism that Kevin suggests might occur. So I'd move to move this forward, because I think it is an improvement on where we were before, but to perhaps consider his comment and see if there's something else that might work as well to incorporate into this before it goes to the GSA for their consideration.
Okay,
I second that, including concurrence with Debbie's additional commentary.
and what about the east side? It's all you, Kevin.
I don't think we have a quorum,
Oh, okay.
so we're not going to be able to act. Sorry. You can put it on our next agenda.
Can we check that? Maybe somebody came on?
Oh, 24 now.
Who do we have? We have Stanislaus County, we have Belico Cortez, and Kevin, you no longer represent Eastside Water District, right?
Right, correct.
So we don't have Merced County, Merced ID,
Unless Lauren Lane,
or Eastside Water District. We only have two, Karen.
Okay. So are we able to do a motion for ours, or do we need to hold off till the next meeting to approve for both?
I
no,
think
no.
West could take action
Yeah,
if we wish to.
I'd go
Right.
ahead and take action.
It's not joint action,
Sorry
it's,
about that.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so moving on. Sigma
No,
related,
no,
No.
Karen, we can take action.
okay,
Each individual GSA TAC takes a separate action. So the
okay,
West can take an action, and then
So we have a motion and
Yeah,
a
so
second. We need to
okay, so
put
we
the
need,
question.
is everybody in support of this motion, signify by saying aye,
All
I,
right.
and then opposed nay? Okay, motion carries. Okay, now moving on. Sorry about that.
That
We
is
have-
it for me.
Thank you, Phyllis. Our Sigma related updates. We're looking for a grant update, GSP schedule, and adoption process and public outreach. Would this be you, Debbie? Or Herb?
Who's listed first? I'm getting ready to pull up the
Great.
agenda.
Grant update.
Let's give that to Debbie as long as she's still on, and I'll pull up the agenda.
Okay,
I'll lead in for Debbie if you'd like.
sure.
We're starting on the monitoring wells. A contract's been issued and being administrated by the West Turlock Subbasin GSA for the 6 or 8 monitoring wells at 6 locations. And we're working through the permitting right now through the 2 counties, Stanislaus County and Merced County. And we hope to start drilling right after Labor Day. So if there's any questions on that, we'd be happy to respond to them. But that Prop 68 work, it seems like it's moving along per schedule. Debbie, do you have other updates?
She must not be able to answer right now.
oh, sorry, I'm talking away and I'm on mute. I
Oh,
apologize.
shoot.
The world we live in now. Okay, so Yes, here, I'll put my video on too, just in case, so that you can see I'm talking. So a couple things. The GRAT is continuing to move forward. We're working on scheduling a working group meeting so that people can start seeing the front end and see how it works and start getting some feedback on that. They've collected all of the data, except I think there's one piece that they're still gathering and incorporating into it. And so we will have a working GRAT, which is the groundwater recharge assessment tool, later this year. Probably we'll probably see the like the beta version in September-ish. And then we'll have an opportunity to begin working on it and providing feedback. And then once we provide feedback and say, well, can we do this? Or, is there something else with respect to how it's working? They'll work through that and do the final QA/QC and then provide the final version for the agencies to be working with. So we're getting close, and I'm pretty excited about that. Also, I have been communicating with ESA, which is our consultant for the PEIR. And as the projects and management actions that I'll talk about in a minute begin to be worked through a little more, that information will then be fed to the consultant, and she can begin the process for the projects and the PEIR work. So that's an update on the Prop 68 grant, along with what Kevin was describing for the wells. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that, and then I'll move to the GSP. Okay, so I wanted to give a bit of an update on the different sections. We've talked a little bit about the sustainable management criteria section today with Phyllis and her work. We've also been working on a bunch of different other sections of the GSP, kind of all in tandem. And so I wanted to kind of give a little bit of an update on where we are and all of that. The outreach chapter will be released to the TAC as a draft here later this month. I'm expecting late August. The GSAs are being queried on the availability to meet in late August to review and consider the release of the water budget draft section as well. At this point, we're kind of looking at either the 30th or the 31st, because it looks like those two dates might work best for the West Turlock board members. I think the East Turlock board members had indicated that any of the dates that we put forth would work. So we've got quite a few board members on the West Turlock. So that's, we're looking at the 30th or 31st, and we'll post it on the website and provide updates to everyone as we narrow that down. The monitoring network draft section is also being worked on and will be available to the TAC for review in late August. So there's going to be a lot of things coming up for everyone to take a look at in late August. We're also working on modeling the specifics for the projects, and we'll be reporting on that very soon. And again, that will kind of feed into the PEIR. And then we're also working through at the ad hoc level for the projects, and are not the projects, but the management actions. And we hope to bring that to the TAC at the next meeting to kind of begin talking about some of that. So lots of things going on. One thing I wanted to throw out to the TAC is that there's going to be a lot of work between now and January when we're required to adopt the GSP. And so there may be a need to schedule special meetings in addition to the one special meeting that we have kind of put on the calendar right now each month. And so I'm hoping that all the representatives will work with us to ensure that when we do schedule a special meeting, that we show up and have enough for quorums, because I know it's always difficult, particularly in the summer months, you know, when everyone's on vacation and what have you. But there's a lot to be done between now and then. And so I think likely to keep things moving, we'll need to schedule a few special meetings. So I hope everyone's kind of up for that. And if there's certain days that don't work, you know, let me know so that I can try to work around it. But so any thoughts on that?
I agree, Debbie. This is Kevin. I think we do have a tight time frame to get all these chapters reviewed in a timely manner for the team, so that we can get an administrative draft out. So I think the East Side be happy to schedule more meetings as long as we can resolve this drought and the state board issues. Teasing. There's just a lot going on. Yeah.
There is. Okay. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about, well, I've talked a little bit about schedule. Valerie is here to talk a little bit about the adoption process. And one thing that she'll mention in just a moment is that we're required to send out a letter to the cities and counties to notify them that the DSA plans to consider and adopt the GSP. And so we're recommending that we consider a joint letter between both GSAs to do that. And we're required to do it, I think, 90 days before the hearing to adopt the GSP. But there's no reason to wait. And so we're kind of recommending that we do that earlier rather than later. And so we're going to be working towards that as well. I think it's like I said, it's a regulatory requirement. And we might as well, you know, get that box checked off sooner rather than later, unless there's some concern from anyone. It's about sending it earlier rather than later.
No concerns.
Okay, great. So we'll move forward with that. And then lastly, and this ties into what Valerie and Herb are going to talk a little bit about it further, is I want to make a pitch that we need to be updating our agencies on the GSP sections as they're coming out. And so there's more information on what will be available. I think Herb's going to talk a little bit about that in the FSS and the outreach update. But anything we can do to you know, make sure that our agencies are aware of everything that's going on. And I know there's been a lot going on, but we want to make sure that everybody's well up to date and there aren't any surprises. We'd rather, you know, address anything if we need to sooner rather than later. So with that, I'll turn it over to Valerie for the adoption process.
Sure, thanks, Debbie. So Sigma does not say a whole lot about GSP adoption. It simply says that GSAs may adopt a GSP no sooner than giving 90-day consultation notice to cities and counties. So so obviously that's what we have to do. We have to give cities and counties the ability to consult with the GSAs. They can respond within 30 days if they want to consult. This is a little bit of a relic from when Sigma was started, and frankly, sometimes this still applies, but in a subbasin like our own, where the cities and counties sit on the GSA, it's a little bit duplicative. But it is the one requirement. So even though it's duplicative, I suggest we send out the 90-day notice. To Debbie's point, the only a GSA can adopt a GSP. So there will not be specific members necessarily adopting the GSP, but certainly members of each GSA are able to review it and provide direction to their GSA rep on how to vote. So if you feel like you are on a short leash with your agency and they want to review everything and make sure they understand it before your specific board member votes at the GSA level, as Debbie noted, now is certainly the time to be taking the substance to those folks. It's not really a GSA. I know from the West Turlock, it's not like we're telling our members what they need to do, but certainly we want to avoid the scenario where we all get to a final vote on the GSP and someone either is concerned or doesn't have the authority from their respective member. So if you need to start talking to your members about what's in the GSP and how it's developing, please from the West do that now. And if there are questions that come up or changes that come up or deal killers that will not allow your respective member to vote, again, it's much better to talk about that now than when we're backed up against this, time crunch of having to adopt and submit by January. I don't think we get into some of the other basins have interesting kind of requirements for noticing a hearing. Each GSA does have to adopt post a hearing, after a hearing. So you send out the consultation notice to cities and counties. You have to wait 90 days at least, and then you can hold a hearing at which you adopt a GSP. So those are the rules. Again, the rules do not talk about how members need to come along, but to the extent that you think your member will have questions or concerns about your member voting in support of the GSP, we should start talking about this now. I think on the West Turlock side, we're going to start telling our specific board members that same thing, which is, when we get time to the vote, we kind of want this all ironed out. So to the extent you need to brief your respective boards, please do it sooner rather than later. So that's the pitch. Again, like Debbie said, the GSAs are the folks who have to do the consultation notices and the actual body that adopts. I think that's it. Debbie, did I miss anything?
No, but are there any questions?
All right, well, now's the time to go back and go over those PowerPoints and some of the PowerPoints that I'm sure Phyllis has done. Maybe those will be helpful. And I know in the West, sometimes we put together kind of slides that you can brief your board members on. If that's something that the West members want the TAC to do, probably talk about that so we know how to brief everyone.
Hey, Valerie, I might add that Phyllis and I have talked and she has agreed to make a presentation to the Stanislaus County Water Advisory Committee on Wednesday, September 29th. And that'll be for both the Modesto GSP and the Turlock GSP. So people who have the opportunity to attend that meeting, it'll be a Zoom, and we'll be sending out an agenda and an invite and all that coming up here fairly soon.
Yeah, no, that's
People
helpful.
can plug into that.
Yep, that's very helpful, and it's certainly kind of Phyllis to do that. So it's a good way to do it.
Walt, if you could make sure that information gets out to the group, that would be great.
You bet.
I second that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That sounds great.
Under item 6, Sigma related updates, Kevin, do you feel it's appropriate to announce to the group what transpired this morning?
Oh, sure. I'm happy to update the group if you have a moment for me. Yeah, this morning we held a public hearing. The East Turlock Subbasin GSA JPA board held a public hearing for a Prop 218 election. It was a protest type election so that we could establish an administrative fee to cover the cost of administrating the GSA. We received, after a nice presentation by our consultant Provost and Pritchard, Mike Day, we received a couple of mail-in protests and three protests delivered at the meeting from one family. So it was a parcel by parcel protest. So there were little 2.5% of the parcels protested. So the board was allowed to proceed with their planned implementation of the per acre charge. And that was approved this morning by the JPA board. So it looks like the East Turlock Subbasin GSA will be funded for the next 10 years, at least from the administrative side. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks, Walt.
Kevin, did Provost and Pritchard do your, I guess, rate analysis on that to determine what those rates should be?
Yes, they did, in cooperation with the TAC.
Okay,
It was tied to our budget, and it is tied to our budget
gotcha.
each year.
Very good. Thank you. I think Herb still has a few more things that he would like to go over.
Oh,
Yeah, I just have a couple items. I know we have plenty of time. I'm going actually to pull up one quick slide. Give me a second. And then I have just 4 items that'll be quick. So it was mentioned already that we have draft chapters, that is 1, 2, and 4 of the GSP available for comment. This is a slide just showing what the sections consist of, and then the fact that we are looking to get comments prior to September 1st, Wednesday, September 1st. I will note that no comments formally have been received thus far in writing through the 3 methods on which comments can be received. That would be, on our website at turlockgroundwater.org/GSP. There's, United States Postal Service mail, we'll take them. Then an address is there. We have email, and then we have a web form on the website. And we have not received any thus far that I'm aware of. So for anybody who's commented, I would love to double check that, but my guess is people are still reading, downloading, and developing potential comments. So pass the word along. That is out for comment. To that effect, we just wrapped up planning a September 2nd virtual lunch hour from noon to 1, and you'll hear more information about that in the coming few days. And that will be a virtual lunch hour, and we'll have our facilitating crew from Stantec that's being used with some funding hours that's been given to us from the Department of Water Resources that we've been awarded, and which we applied for in April. And we're going to be using them to go over the general content of the draft GSP chapters 1, 2, and 4 to educate the public about that. And so look for more information on that, but we literally just booked it yesterday, September 2nd, virtual lunch hour, noon to 1. Very similar format with different information, of course, to the other lunch hours we've held in early 2021. Also, if you, this was mentioned by Valerie and also by Debbie, if TAC member agencies are talking formally, whether orally or in writing, about Sigma or about the draft GSP to your boards and councils, please let us know so that we can document them as part of the 3rd chapter of the GSP, which covers notice and communication. Also, it'd be good too if I know our Turlock Irrigation District has presented a couple times on the GSP. So anything in the past, also, it would be nice to know so that we could try and document the best we can what's been discussed in our appendices for that chapter. So just a plug on that, that if you're planning to, or if you have discussed formally with your boards or councils, let us know, let me know, let Debbie know, and we'll document that. Also, I mentioned earlier the facilitation support services work. We received that funding from the Department of Water Resources earlier this year. We're working with Stantec on that, and there's some work that's already in progress. One of which that I already mentioned is we're starting to get these virtual lunch hours planned for the remainder of the year. I believe we have 5 tentatively scheduled. We also have 2 in-person deep dives that we're looking to do tentatively toward the end of the year on the chapters that have been drafted. And there'll be more information on that coming up as we hone in on those dates. And so also what's being worked on is materials for during the GSP adoption process for member agencies of the TAC, so that they could be used to inform their boards and councils. We're thinking things along the lines of fact sheets and checklist items, things that might need to be done, presentations, things of that nature have been discussed thus far. And so stay tuned for those. So if you do plan on talking with your boards or councils, we'll be able to have some information available for you, make it a little bit easier and consistent in terms of what gets presented. And then one other thing that's already been done on the FSS work, we submitted earlier, I want to say late last week, we submitted to the state's Native American Heritage Commission a sacred lands submittal to double check that our assumption is indeed true, that there are no sacred lands listed in the Turlock Subbasin. And so we filed that with them, and we expect to get word back. We filed some maps of the Turlock Subbasin with appropriate section, township, and range. And we're looking to see if we could get their response, and they'll basically tell us if there's any sacred lands listed, or if there's any tribal interests in the area. And then we would include them in our outreach, and we would actually include them in some targeted outreach as well. One other item, and then I'll answer some questions. If there are any, TAC members are encouraged to join our ad hoc communications committee to work on, basically 2 things are being worked on right now. One is the group of FSS items, various tasks that are being done for outreach moving forward on the GSP that's being done with Stantec. And there's a lot of different things. I've only mentioned a couple here just in the past little bullet I mentioned. And so we encourage people, thank you to Karen, and I know Lacey's expressed interest. And so we would love to have a little working group of the TAC members to help on that, so that we could use these meetings for various policy questions and technical questions. And then one other thing that the TAC members are encouraged to join the ad hoc committee for, the ad hoc communications committee, is we are developing draft chapter 3 for the GSP, which is the notice and communication section. And so we're working on drafting that up, and it'd be great to get some eyes on that before we get it out to TAC members for their internal review, and before we get it ready to go out to stakeholders for full-on review as a draft GSP chapter. Again, even if we get that done somewhat early for initial review, we'll still have to add in some things toward the end as we get toward the end of the year, related to all the outreach that's done as we lead up to potential GSP adoption. So it would still be a working document, but we're working towards getting that out for review. And I believe that is all I have. I think I saw that there was a hand raised. So if whoever raised the hand, or if you have any questions, just feel free to jump in and ask, and we'll try to answer them the best we can.
Great, thanks, Herb. I appreciate all the work you're doing and giving us all that information. I had 2 questions. One is, those deep dives that you talked about, are those going to be workshops? And if so, are they going to be in the evenings so that folks who work during the day can participate?
We haven't scheduled the timing yet. We have some tentative holds on some dates, and we're working on seeing if those are the best. But certainly, if evening is preferred, we could definitely try and go that route. And I know that we've tried doing a combination of meetings in the past. We've done a few evening, done a few afternoons. So definitely take that comment, well received. And then as far as they're most likely, the initial plan right now is to go a little bit below the surface level when it relates to the chapters that are being released at that time. We're looking around late October, November timeframe for a couple of them. So Of course, we'll have some other chapters by then that have been released for public
Mhm.
comment. And so we'll go a little bit deeper into those, more so than we would do during one of the virtual lunch hours. And so it'd be very based on the chapters and their content. And we'd be geared, or at least I personally would make an effort to gear things toward receiving public comment on those chapters. If not informally, if not formally, encouraging people to comment, but definitely getting informal comments as well that could add to the context. So as we work to update those chapters and get them out.
Okay, great. That's good to know what to expect. Folks, we just met with folks in Delhi earlier on Monday about kind of went over the first chapters, and they're very interested in engaging, especially on the sustainable management criteria chapters, and several of them, quite a few of them wouldn't be able to go to something unless it was in the evening and had translation. So we encourage that as well.
That's good to know. We'll definitely gear up towards that on both components, timing and translation services. And then additionally too, if there's ever a need to have like a targeted discussion, and we could look to see if we could have that, in the community as well. And so,
Yeah. And they did say that was something they'd be interested in.
yeah. And so we can continue the conversation on that as well, because the idea would be to continue to get a large amount of feedback from stakeholders and work forward with that.
Great, thanks, Herb.
Hey, Herb, this is Walt.
Hey, well,
Yeah, hey, where's my Turlock Groundwater t-shirt, size 42?
it was on back order.
Oh.
But they put the logo on the inside of the shirt, so we had to figure that one out and reorder it.
Oh.
Yeah. Or if
Okay.
it's like my kids, everything in the laundry is inside out. So that's always a good thing. Any other questions potentially regarding outreach or any other items that we talked about for Sigma related updates? Okay, and I'll just note real quick too, I wasn't able to start the recording of this meeting until about 17 minutes in. So that's a mistake I will remedy next time. I don't know why it didn't automatically start like it normally does. So when I upload the video to YouTube, it will be missing the first 17 minutes. But we covered a lot more after that as well. Also note, Phyllis's presentation is online on our turlockgroundwater.org site. If anybody's looking at downloading that and taking a look at it.
I think Richard Nixon was missing 18 minutes.
True. Richard Nixon, if sad enough to say, I do actually remember that time. It's a testament to my age. All right, that's it for me.
Okay, well, thank you very much. If there's nothing else that anybody has, we're looking to our next meeting, Thursday, August 26, 2021. Does the West Side have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor to end the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that closes our West Turlock GSA meeting.
Thanks, Karen. You
You're
ran a
so
good
welcome.
meeting.